Well, hi everyone, and welcome to the show. And hopefully you can hear us because we've had a few technical problems. That's why we're 10 minutes late today. But fingers crossed, it'll all go okay. Give us a comment in the chat if you can, just to let us know you can hear us so that our control room know what's going on. And we're going to be talking tonight with Dom Chambers, who's coming here to talk about self-empowerment and how we can sort of become confident in ourselves, isn't it? Really, that's our main thought. Now, Dom comes from a charity. What's your charity called, Dom?
The charity is called Sound Vision, and it comes out of my career in radio, hence the sound, and a bit of fun with the word vision. Because basically it's a great idea, so it's a sound vision.
Oh, I see. A vision of sound. A vision of...
Yeah, but it's also sound as in, good idea, keep thinking. Crack on.
Yeah, okay. So you basically, the whole concept of it is you're helping younger people mainly, I believe, and you're helping them to sort of gain self-confidence in life. That's the main
I think it starts with believing in young people. And a lot of young people don't have grown-ups believing, and a lot of grown-ups don't believe in young people. So if you start with that, blend it in with the a really core belief in the goodness of humans. You either think that the human race is essentially bad or it's good. I'm very much of the latter category. So if your starting point is you're going to believe in people, and then give them an environment in which they can sort of progress themselves, but a supporting environment, because a lot of people have a sense of abandonment or things aren't going terribly well. So if you give them an environment where they can drive themselves to a positive place, I think the core belief of the charity is that everybody has it within their own power to, if you like, empower themselves and take their lives to a point where they're self-fulfilled and fulfilling their own potential.
Yeah, well, I think one of the big problems today, actually, why things are, in my opinion, are going wrong so badly, is basically at the education end, because it seems to be being hijacked, and people are being disempowered. For example, I think about the feminization of boys. I think about the woke movement, for example. I think about non-competitiveness. Has that gone too far? Because like when we were at school, if you didn't get picked for the football team, it wasn't the end of the world. I rarely got picked for the football team. I was last on the list, but it didn't stop me in life. And then in other areas, you do succeed. But is there a fundamental problem that's getting to kids nowadays and to adults as well, that we're not expected to be winners?
I think every generation gets it a little bit right, a little bit wrong, and that's the dialectic, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what drives it all for. It's like being a parent. You want to do the best you can. You know that you're not going to get everything right. I think from the point of view of Sound Vision as a charity, we're there to complement education.
Yeah.
So whatever's going on in education, and I've been involved in this particular world for the last 15 years, so we've seen huge amounts of changes to different government priorities and that kind of thing in education. But the consistency and the demand of what we're doing, which is not within formal education, we do go into schools, we deliver alternative provision, but essentially we are outside of the curriculum, and kids come into us. Or they're looking for, develop their own pathways out of education into the workplace. We help with all that. But essentially, we're outside of school. So irrespective of what's going on in school, there is always going to be a need for skills-based learning, for studio-based learning, in which, people can use their creativity. Because with creativity, you know this as a painter yourself, and I was funny enough, I was in my art college today, many decades later. But I remember the creative process is you try a little thing, it doesn't go very well, so you try something else, and then eventually you come up with something that you're creatively really happy with. Now, if you can create an environment as we do, where young people can come in without fear of being laughed at and develop their creativity, where we might laugh with them if they make a funny, but we're not going to laugh at them. The biggest fear of young people, I'm told by parents, and in my observation, I'm sure it was the same when you were a kid and when I was a kid, is the fear of being laughed at. And that's why you don't step forward in the class. You think the teacher's going to maybe pick on you. And if you can develop your confidence, your verbal confidence or your skills, and all skills lead to confidence in the end, that will help your self-worth, that will help your self-belief. And those are the core drivers to lead you to being, a self-fulfilled person. And what we're really about is trying to create an even playing field of opportunity for all.
Yeah, I suppose creativity is a massively important thing, I think, for self-development. Because, I mean, Sai Baba said, the end of education is character. And I think nowadays all schools seem to be tick box knowledge, and the kids are coming out, I think, always worrying about how you look on camera, or how many followers you got on TikTok or Twitter or whatever, and how people are perceiving you all the time. It's like me nowadays. I've got to the point now, I've got older, I don't give a damn what people think about me. If people think I'm an idiot, fine. I think that actually empowers you more than anything. If you don't care what other people think, then you're on the road, I think, to self-confidence, in my opinion. Also possibly on the road to dangerous arrogance if you're not careful. But if you can find that path where you think, well, you see, the original word I think the original Latin of confidence, I never did Latin at school, but I think it means truth. So if we are comfortable in the fact that we understand truth, then we are comfortable in ourselves, and therefore if we're coming from a standpoint of truth, we're always going to be confident because we're speaking from truth. And as soon as you speak without truth, you end up in a difficult situation. You end up like a Rishi Sunak or someone like that, who's always trying to jump around and jump the gun and never sort of speak from the heart.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's part of where you're at, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, you touched on an area that I'm really thinking about a lot at the moment, which is, what role does education have in creating and helping people be rounded? Most education is geared towards that, isn't it? What about this? What about the spirit? What about the heart? And what was of a huge influence to me was that the Dalai Lama came to my school when I was 18, so we're not talking about yesterday, but it was the current Dalai Lama, and he said he started this with wonderful words, which were, "You're all here to educate your minds," it's looking at us school kids, you see, "but I'm here to educate your hearts." And so that was the first time I understood that there was a more rounded approach to education. And I think you're right. I think the priorities of education have largely taken us back to the classroom pathway. Now, we know that there are many reasons why that doesn't work for people, and we're here to help with that by providing, as I call it, a complementing education environment, a skills-based, a studio-based learning environment. And to be fair to the schools, there is since COVID and the lockdowns and all the mental health issues that had right across the country, but also, particularly focusing on young people who were missing their friends and missing going to school. We realized how important it was for many people coming out of quite challenged home environments to go to school to get that food. But to be fair to schools, at least the ones we're dealing with and we're involved with, there is a big agenda around alternative provision. So organisations like, most schools will have an internal alternative provision system. So if kids aren't working well in the class, or they've got some mental health challenges or whatever it is, they'll go to that. Now, if that doesn't work, then organisations like us will come in, and we create sort of more of a one-to-one or a one-to-two environment and teach them the skills to make a podcast.
I think the most important thing is really getting self-confidence, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because that's what you're trying to do there, isn't it? Through creativity to get self-confidence. I think the two things I learned from school was, first, don't conform. Because
Don't be kind.
my school was a grammar school.
Don't be kind.
Yeah.
Don't conform and be inspired.
Yeah.
Because all you need to do, if you want to learn, all you have to be is inspired. You don't have to learn anything. If you're inspired by something, you'll just learn it naturally.
But you're from an era, and so am I, where the state values, looking at it from an idealistic point of view, the concept of education. And I think, and I was down at Solent University today talking about this very point, but with young people having to straddle themselves with all this debt, I think the state should invest in young people's wider education and talking about the education of the hearts as well as the minds, because that's what creates your tax contributing, your civil contributing citizen of the future.
And it creates happiness, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah.
It creates happiness too. It creates rounded individuals that feel comfortable. It should be absolutely free education, and it shouldn't be sold overseas. It should just be for our country, in my opinion, because what's the point of selling our greatest resource? The greatest resource that we have as a small little country is our intelligence and our ability to think outside the box, to be inventive. Most of the great inventions came out of Britain, and that came because of our education system. Although it was,
and also being an island, so people were looking always out. It's a very kind of, it's interesting being Winchester, near Portsmouth, Southampton. It's the island nations that really wanted to go out and see the world, like the Dutch, and the British, and I think it created. Was it Napoleon or Voltaire? It was rather, I can't remember if they were being complimentary or dismissive, saying England was a nation of shopkeepers. But in other words, the small spirit of entrepreneurialism is a drive. And I think being an island nation has quite a lot to do with that.
And it was a lot to do with individualism, surely. Because British people have always been a little bit wacky and a little bit eccentric.
Well, you are.
I certainly am.
Well, I would say about the 60s, and I think you were part of that decade, Craig, is that at the start of the 60s, he says delicately, at the start of the 60s, it was time to give up the empire. Of course it was.
Yeah.
But by the end of the 60s, we'd reconquered the world with rock and roll.
That's right.
With Led Zeppelin.
Rule Britannia.
Well, no, that came later as well. But yeah, the spirit of the 60s.
But so don't forget, guys. Let's have some of your questions and comments. We're talking about primarily the idea of self-empowerment, I suppose, aren't we? About how, and particularly
self-belief.
Self-belief, Craig.
Self-belief.
Self-belief will lead to empowerment.
Yeah, self-belief. That was the title of the show. I couldn't remember.
You've got the self-belief.
I need to be educated. So any good thoughts, guys? So question coming up here from Shez. Question: How do children develop self-belief and confidence if they are getting bullied?
Yes,
now that's a big problem, isn't it?
I think this is such a massive issue because bullying has existed, as we know, for forever, and I'm sure, like so many people, I went through a period of being bullied, and in fact overcoming that I regard as the greatest triumph of my life. I overcame it without actually being mean to anyone else, so that was quite and I did that strategically, age 13. But one of the issues that's very, very apparent now, that with social media and all sorts of modern technology, the bullying no longer stops at the playground.
No.
So it follows you home, and it can be incredibly isolating, and the loneliness of sitting in your bedroom being bullied. You may have a lovely mum and dad downstairs, but you're still feeling...
And it makes it even worse, I think, because you have a happy occasion, but you're not allowed to be happy because something horrible's happening in the background.
So I think in order to answer the question from the point of view of what we're doing is, if you provide an environment, I talk about a studio environment, so what we do, and we're working in Wandsworth, we're working in Bath, we're working in the Radstock area of North East Somerset, we're working in Taunton as well, more to come, is you create a safe space environment where people will come in and they can genuinely leave that behind because people will believe in them. They will meet like-minded people, and nobody is there to have a go at anyone. You're all there for the same reason. If you're feeling vulnerable, and then put that in an environment where actually you're safe and non-prejudicial, and as I say, you won't be laughed for being yourself. This is it. It's so many of our young people tell us, I like coming here because of the welcome. Maybe the biscuits help as well, but it's because
alcohol
it's
as well.
because that comes later. But they're believed in, and I think this is absolutely true. So many people are carrying a sense of abandonment. There can be all sorts of reasons for that. So if you provide an environment, and I'm talking, it is a physical environment, because you come in after school. And our lovely trainers who have experience in special educational needs. But ultimately, I take on people because they've got to be good at their work. Of course, they've got to be reliable. They've got to be dependable. They've got to have all those things. That's a given. But compassion is at the top of the list. And the really important thing is, because some young people are very knowledgeable about their own conditions, and they can sort of fire that back at you. So you have to, our trainers, have that nous, if I can put it that way, to know when it's appropriate to kind of go with somebody's knowledge about their own mental health, their anxiety, whatever, and sometimes also cut through it and say, no, if you sit down and did that, you would achieve it in 15 minutes, and as opposed to all this prevaricating and procrastination. And knowing the difference, or knowing when to intervene with a little bit of strength and forcefulness, and knowing when to let them go, is, I think, part of this. But essentially, you build self-belief because somebody else is believing in you.
Jane, you dealt with a lot of vulnerable kids when you were a nurse and things like that.
Well, teenagers and suicidals, and it's true what Dom says. They need somebody that believes in them, and a good listening ear, and having compassion and love, and to make them feel self-worth. Because a lot of them nowadays suffer depression. I mean, in the 21st century, it's really very difficult for young people because, going through COVID, I think that was a period where children had a high percentage of mental illness and that. And so it wasn't easy for them, and people forget that. And I think it's true. If you've got somebody that believes in you and somebody that's for you, and gives you courage to go forward, I think it's a wonderful thing to do. And I think it's wonderful what you're doing, Dom.
And I suppose exactly the same, isn't it, to adults as it is to kids.
Everything we talk about as a charity or Sound Vision is applicable to adults. And what's interesting is we talk about the transition from childhood to adulthood is never a comfortable one, irrespective of, and as you've just said, there's lots of challenges you can shove into the mix. But of course, later on, if you are able to develop confidence in young people, which will then lead to their self-belief, because if you can do a thing, then you believe in yourself, and that takes forward. Of course, later in life, you don't get beyond the age of 12, 13 without carrying some sort of baggage. Something will go wrong, and it's a question of how we deal with that. So you might get made redundant, you might get an illness, your partner might leave you. There could be all sorts of upsets, and that can send your confidence back to the sort of base position. So we're very much there for adults as well. Obviously, we don't mix up the training courses, but we provide spaces for adults to come in, develop their hobbies. It's all about early interventions, isn't it, really?
But also, do you think, this is another thing that worries me about the way things are at the moment, is we're too soft on kids. I mean, and that's nobody wants to hear that nowadays. They want you to be all nice all the time, but the world out there is not like that. That's why I think challenges are also important.
But do you think once we were too hard on kids, and now we're maybe going with one, so it's a sort of a swingometer, you've got the thesis, the antithesis, and the synthesis. And so if we've had the thesis of the really hard, so caning, we're talking about caning and all those terrible things, and then maybe the over softly approach, is there a synthesis to be found?
We've got to find a way in the middle. I mean, I heard the other day they're talking about people in the army, men being able to have the right to wear makeup. I mean, that's you're not going to fight Russia like that. Or anybody, you're not going to fight.
You never know, they could be so outraged by it. It could be a military tactic.
I think
Scare them off.
they mix children up now because in schools they're not allowed to say Mr. or Mrs., are they?
This gender neutral stuff.
You get confusion.
I think that's all very dangerous. I think kids need fairly clear rules.
And boundaries.
I always think, particularly young children, very young children, they need routines, don't they?
Yeah.
If you can bring in a baby up, or a young toddler, you need routines. Routines give them the comfort, and they say that they learn more with routines. So studies have shown that kids that know they're going to have adult time at that time, and they're going to have some time for a story at that time, and have a set routine. They settle into this routine, and they learn, and they become much more balanced. Same too with teenagers. They kind of need rules. Most adults need rules. That's why we have religion as opposed to spirituality. And all the kind of rules have been thrown away in a way. We've just said everything goes. You know, you can be what you want. You can be a girl if you want. You can be a boy if you want.
It's too much.
You know, it got into schools.
There's so much freedom. Actually, there's less freedom. Interestingly, and I think everybody needs structures, and one thing we require is commitment. So if you're going to come to an after schools training course, you obviously everyone's going to be sick from time to time. You're going to go on a holiday or whatever, and we tend to operate only in school times, but you need to make that commitment. And so where our ideas really work is if a young person sees the value of it. It never works if a parent wants to send their kid in. It's got to come from the child themselves or the young person themselves. But if they're prepared to make a commitment, they will learn that, you know, you get out what you put in, and those are some might say old-fashioned ethics there. But it is about making a commitment. And if you and we get some people say, I can't come in because of my mental health. Well, I'm not sure. I'm not convinced that you can be that objective about your own mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. And people say, I can't go to work because it makes me feel tired. Another question come in here. How do we teach kids that failure is not something bad? Instead of failure, actually is the progress to evolve your skills.
I think that is such a great point,
isn't it? It's a really clever point.
Careers are not made really on successes. The careers are made on how you cope and deal with and process your knockbacks. And we were talking about the creative process earlier, where you can try things out and get it a little bit wrong. But if a failure has been brought about because a young person has abjectly not done loads of things, I think that's a different thing than just trying your hardest and not getting where you want to be. I mean, I based all my training and ideas around training on how I completely got it wrong. And
it's the same in business. When I was in business, every successful businessman I met had probably been bust 2 or 3 times. When we met celebrities and things, we've spoken to them and said, you've done well in life. Well, you've seen only the successes. Multiply that by 10, the failures, and the number of times I've been rejected. Same in when we've done TV and things, that we asked into this program, that program, and it's going to change your world, and and everything's going to be different tomorrow. And then next minute it's gone like that. And that's what makes you move on, isn't it? I mean, you found that, Jane, too, haven't you, when we've done things?
I really only do things that I'm happy with and contented with now at my age. I don't have to prove myself to anybody. And I think as you get older, you gain wisdom, knowledge, and you do things that you enjoy. I mean, we both enjoy, all of us enjoy meeting people and doing things. And you meet so many interesting people. But if we would go back when we were younger, perhaps we didn't have the confidence then. And perhaps we've got too much confidence now. I know I have. I don't know about you, Craig.
I don't think you can have too much confidence. Well, you can have too much. That becomes ego.
It's a really interesting point about confidence, because on my own personal journey, it's only in recent years that I thought this through, because acquiring professional confidence, in my case, you're not born a broadcaster, you've got to somehow develop the confidence. And I used to read in the lesson in church to sort of build that confidence up. Eventually, my career goes my way and I develop professional confidence. And then, you see, I was larger than a house. You see, I was putting on more and more weight. And eventually I thought, listen, there's no point doing all this marvellous work with young people and otherwise if I'm not going to be around to see it through. So I thought, I'm professionally confident. I had an uncomfortable but important conversation with myself to say, is there something missing in how I'm actually feeling about myself in here? Self-esteem, in other words. And then this is where I worked out that there's a difference between professional confidence, and so the confidence in that sphere, and how you're thinking about yourself. And as soon as I came to that conclusion, was the key to unlock the door to my, what I would call, health recovery journey. And this is back to the self-belief. So once you've analysed your own self-esteem, to start to build that self-belief. So I actually look in the mirror and say, you could do this. I set out to lose 10 stone. And the reason why I'm very happy to come on your show, Craig, is because I'm on the way. I've done 8 stone.
8 stone. I know. Last time we saw. But that gives you self-confidence.
Yeah,
it takes determination too.
Yeah,
that's another thing.
And that's where that self-belief comes in, because. I should also say, the only way you can really change your life and lose weight like that is not because you're going on some tremendous diet. It is all about, and I can say this, everyone will have their own views on this, but for me, you deploy tools that support the journey that started in there. So I had a stomach bypass, a procedure that was planned. I've tried the Ozempic, the thing that everyone's raging about in America, and all that's actually been really helpful. But it's only when you develop the self-belief that you can do this, that those become tools supporting the inner journey. Nobody ever loses weight without that core belief that you can do it.
Yeah, and what's for tea tonight? I forgot. Stop believing. We've got another question. But all this stuff, guys, have a look afterwards in the description of the YouTube. You can find it on the Facebook page as well. You can find out all about Dom and his charity and his weight loss. A little bit about that as well. I'm on a mission. You see, I'm on a mission to see more of my feet. It's working out. Okay, we've got another interesting question in from Glinda here saying, university breeds critical analytical thinkers, right? Therefore, there are many who have a reduced ability for emotional awareness. So are we breeding a load of robots in university, intellectuals who are lopsided, don't have the emotional side? What do you think?
That sounds like someone's done some quite sort of advanced thinking on all this. I mean, I do wonder how different the university experience is now. And it was very interesting going back to one of my old universities today in Southampton. I was talking about this. Where is the duty of care, for instance? Because if someone, and as a charity working with young people, of course, I have to know all about safeguarding, have policies, and I give advice on this. But I was saying to the chap showing me around, Solent University today, someone had tried to safeguard me when I was at university. I would have told them to go about their business. Thank you very much. Yeah. But it's a different world. I'm not quite sure if this is answering the point that's been raised here. There is perhaps a separate point about the life of university campuses. I, with great reverence and respect and love, think that I was educated out of the spirit of the 60s movements, of the youth empowerment that was going on. And that was all about the rights of the individual, which was coming out of a kind of collective approach to society, which you needed to win a war. And so it was very much
a reaction against that.
Well, I think the 60s were a reaction. But it's clearly, in the sort of decades since I was at university, moved on now, whereby I'm not sure that universities are quite such a places of free thinking, the ones that they were.
Yeah, I did an interview with Deepak Chopra a little while back, and afterwards they invited me up to Oxford University, and I was sat there while Oxford students were giving their questions and things. And I was amazed how clever they were mentally, but very spiritually naive in many ways. And this is where I think the question is interesting, because we are kind of getting lopsided individuals. Everything is all about rationality and critical thinking, like she says, which is great tools for understanding the world out there, because that's what we need. That's the Western way we think. But nobody thinks about the inner world. Nobody thinks about our awareness, our emotional side as well. It seems that all that side of ourselves, including creativity, is being ignored or forgotten or lost. I mean, I was looking today at artificial intelligence again, and it's in the news at the moment, how it's been released that you can use text-based artificial intelligence to produce movies. And I was looking at some of the examples. Mind-boggling. So all the creativity of one of our most creative industries, which will also include the games world, I expect as well, gone. So we don't need creative people anymore. So we're becoming more like that artificial intelligence ourselves. We're becoming almost just critical thinkers. We're not rounded individuals. And that's where people feel this fear, this weakness that we're seeing in so many people, where we got to worry about what we look like, where we got to worry about the superficial all the time. We got no depth of understanding.
It's also a bit earnest. I mean, I think that the point of going to university is to become a well-rounded person. That's probably an old-fashioned liberal ethic there, but what I'm saying. But I do worry sometimes about how young people, because it's a much tougher world, you've got to have edge. But I firmly believe that if you do have a rounded education, I've always said, and I say this to the trainees, I've never met a successful person who wasn't fundamentally curious about the world about them. And if you are curious and getting out there, and if you don't go and experience a different culture, if you don't do some traveling, if you don't experiment socially and all those things that I think university life should be about, you never will. And
things that take you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Nothing like a bit of criticism. I mean, I get my best ideas when people put a comment in on the YouTube and say, "That's rubbish, Craig. I don't think that you're on the right track with that." I might delete it, but then I have a good think about it.
I like to push people slightly. If I feel that they're pushable, I customize that approach. A high functioning autistic young man came to me, and he'd never held down a job because it was finding it very difficult, and it was on our pathway to employment scheme, which is finding the steps forward out of education into work. But he'd been sort of not doing terribly, and he's a really clever guy. There was definitely a role, and he got a job interview, and he rang me out. He was terribly concerned that the bus, by the time he came in after his job interview, there wouldn't be much he would dare think about going home. So I said to him, right, do something else, right, that you've never done before, and then come in and tell me all about it. So I was sort of pushing him a little bit. I'd completely forgotten I'd said that to him. About a week later, he comes and knocks on my door, comes in, he said, I've done it. That's all to be done. He said, I went, because the autism, you do that. And anyway, he'd gone into Bristol, where there's a lot of television centres and on media and stuff, and he signed up for the Undateables. And he was on it, and he started, and it was an extraordinary thing. And he came back, and he said, I never would have done that otherwise, but I took you seriously. He went and signed up for the Undateables. He'd never done anything.
He did it on his own.
I have to say, I don't know if he got picked on the Undateables, and I'm not sure what his dating status is now. But he became a data cruncher for the local social housing group. So he finally got that employment that he would be giving his employers a really good service.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we've got some more questions in. Actually, I think most scientists are high-functioning autistics.
I think most people I think we're all on the spectrum somewhere along the line.
I think most people have a little bit of real cleverness.
Yeah.
I think some people are wired differently.
Yeah.
You're wired in a different way, which a lot of us couldn't keep that level of concentration up.
But if you can find, either because it's you or you're working with people, if you can find where that wiring really works well, you can create the most wonderful careers and approaches.
Yeah. So Marilyn's Planet is saying, Marilyn's Planet. That's a pretty good name. Imagine the mother. We named this baby Marilyn's Planet. Isn't it important on teaching children how to win gracefully? And you can't win an award every time. It's wrong to give awards just to participate. Aren't we lowering our standards? So this is about the competitivity, isn't it? This is something I feel quite strong about. I don't know.
Well, Willow used to be very competitive, didn't she? She used to hate to lose.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't she?
And that was quite good. I used to get her really upset with snakes and ladders when she went down the big snake. But should we be...
You've got to have competitiveness.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be a harsh environment, which it could have been, I think, in the past. But you've got to strive for something. And if getting an award, it's going to... It'll help your journey enormously. But the striving for it has to be part of the process. But as long as everybody feels like a winner in the end. So, for instance, we work with young people to deliver arts awards. Getting an arts award is a prize, because you have to work for it, and it's an achievement to do so. Now, if you at the end decide you've created a bit of audio that might go into the community radio awards or might go into the radio industry awards, the ARIAs, then why not? But I think the idea of that equal playing field of opportunity, I don't think is created by just having a flat approach to winning.
Yeah, it's like everybody's a winner. It's no good because everybody's a loser then, aren't they?
Well, exactly.
And I think in life, you win or you lose. And there's no sort of someone patting you on the back saying, "Oh, don't worry, you lost this time." It's brutal. When life goes wrong, it's brutal.
Yeah.
So we've got to learn that early on, really, haven't we? Because life is a tough thing. It's got things like death and illness and being sacked and all sorts of horrible things go, divorces. So if you think I've lost, if I've ever lost in life on things, it's always made me more determined to prove that I'm going to show them. But if it was the best thing losing.
I mean, I absolutely agree with that. If you don't win at something and you're in the kind of environment that we're talking about at Sound Vision, you'll think, well, I didn't win that one, so how can I do that? How can I find my way forward? Then that is what the self-belief thing is. So you won't win at everything, and if you believe in yourself, you'll find a way to get there in the end. And I think those are important life lessons.
Yeah. I think one of the most important things is you start to have faith in yourself I'll come back to this idea that confidence means truth. Because you have faith in yourself when you start to discover truth of all forms. So if you, for example, the truth of a fact, you're going to have the confidence that 2 and 2 is 4. I know it because I can prove it to you. So that's one type of confidence. There's also the fact of having the understanding that you believe in yourself because you're coming from a position of truth, from your experience, from your debates, what you've talked about, your feelings. And often I think all of us kind of have an innate knowledge of truth, which I call the conscience. We have an understanding. That's what the conscience is. That is really our route in sometimes, I think, spiritually, to having self-confidence by acting and living by your conscience, which is what religion ultimately is all about, because it tries to explain to people what is right and wrong, which is coming from your conscience and should be pointing you back to that innate knowledge that we have.
Religion provides an infrastructure around spiritualism, really.
Yeah. But then this is another thing that's been hijacked, because when we start mixing religion with education, then we start to get into some very difficult territory.
Well, you can do. I mean, I was educated by monks,
That's why I said
you're teasing it out of me.
I'm teasing it out of you.
It's really interesting because when the monks were so, as a Catholic Benedictine tradition, They were so confident. I mean, that world has changed a lot, and their confidence has actually been hugely shaken. But this was at a time when that confidence was still supreme. They were so confident that you would end up as a sort of, fully signed up Catholic, that they encouraged us to question. And I think this is a really, religions that encourage questioning, I think, have huge validity. Those that are penalizing you because you're questioning, and there's examples of both in the world today, I think are a really negative force.
Good point. Yeah, actually, same thing we could apply to education generally.
And I've got to also say, I've just got to chuck this in there because I've chaired the National Representative Organisation for Community Media, and community radio is a thing that's been great for my career, and it's a wonderful part of the media landscape in the UK. The first time I ever heard the word community was in the context of a community of monks, and it always talks about the community. Now we've got communities, and every second sentence is about everything. Fair enough, fair dues. But the community of monks was, and it was for a private school. This is kind of weirdly socialist. There was no private ownership. There was everyone under the authority of the abbot. As I say, these things have changed a little bit, but wonderful to have had the influence of the Benedictines that go back sort of 1500 years, as opposed to other private schools that go back to the needs of empire in the 19th century.
Yeah. We've got another question.
Oh, it's Miss Savants on there, Craig.
Sorry?
Miss Savants for you.
Okay. Too much focus on it. So I'm going to get where you couldn't catch. I've got these things in. I'm having to listen to the. Too much focus on education being fun. No, some bits are just dull. Go to learn them and move on. Well, that's true. It can't all be fun, can it? Mind you, I don't think I've ever used a logarithm table in my life. I don't think
or a slide rule.
Or a slide rule. I don't think I've done a single bit of algebra. And Chaucer didn't come in much good to me either. Old English, we had to do that in. Yeah. But some bits are dull.
I don't think anything in life can be completely fun. Anything worthwhile is got to come with a little bit of hardship, a little bit of fatigue as well. And for me, fun is often the payback for hard work.
Yeah, you've got to have a reward. You can't have all reward.
If you lead a life of total pleasure, it soon becomes rather dull and very meaningless.
I think most things can be. You can make even dull tasks enjoyable if you're clever with the way you think about things, like mnemonics and things like that. Can learn difficult facts and things like that. But I think we do need to have a certain amount of fun in education. My dad used to say, because he was a teacher, and he used to say, I don't need to teach the kids. All I need to do is inspire them, and they'll go and learn all the facts.
That's a great point. And in terms of fun, I mean, one of the things we say is that kids have fun whilst building skills. If you tell a young person, I've got an employability project, it might be good for you, they would run a mile. You say, listen, you can play the music that you like, you can find out how to, this wonderful broadcast desk where you can hear your voice on a local radio. They go, hey, there's something in that. They want to be there because it's fun.
Yeah. Actually, life should be a bit more fun. I remember reading that book, Play Power. What was that? The guy that did Oz magazine. We need to learn to play in life as well. And I think...
And be playful.
Playful, yeah. Because life is so serious all the time. And I think half the problems people have is they take themselves too seriously too, really, actually. You know, they take their ego seriously. And a whole of life becomes a very serious place.
My friend... Lol, it was actually called Lol before modern text speak, and is short for Lawrence, and he's a very philosophical guy I know through sort of the national strategies around community radio, and he always used to say to me, I love this point, my ego is wrapped up in the success of the project. So we all have an ego. But it's kind of, are you doing something to shore that up a little bit, or are you actually using your ego to drive a mission and something really great?
My ego is tied up into stealing other people's projects.
I've got Sound Vision trademarks in the UK.
Also, new one. What activities are good for fostering confidence and self-belief? both with kids and with adults, really, because we ought to expand this for all, because most people have a problem with this. Thoughts? Jane first.
I leave it to you. I'm enjoying listening to
You're
it.
at the back, girl.
You be quiet. Ruler.
I suppose I'm bound to say that what we do as a charity came out of my broadcasting career. And so the radio station, Summer Valley FM, that I was employed to set up, and then I ran it for 13 years, actually came out of a classroom project. So if you're engaging people or young people in media skills and building their confidence because it's fun and they can see that. So that the question, I think, was about fun activities. Well, I think we've proven. The other thing is that radio could seem a little bit niche and out there. I mean, obviously there's audio, there's podcasting, but what we have done and developed is you can create exactly the same outcomes through music creativity, and everybody pretty well, and young people especially, are very music aligned. Music is in the soul. So if you can achieve these outcomes around self-belief, self-confidence, developing skills that can be transferable to help you in life and become self-fulfilled through music creativity, then I think that's probably got a broader reach than the original areas that we were talking about, which, as I say, came out of broadcasting.
Yeah, that's true. And also public speaking is a tremendous way to get your confidence. I mean, if you stand in front of an audience and you speak, you're terrified, most people are. But if you do that, even like at school, you used to read the poem. They used to always read the poem before the headmaster told us all off. So we'd all get goes in it. Oh, I'm going to read the poem. I'm going to read the thing. But that gave me a lot of confidence, and it taught me that you could speak to an audience, and you might get beaten up round by the cycle sheds if you say something. Teacher's pet because you're speaking. But if you speak to people, I found that really powerful. And I used to change the, they give me one to read and I'd change it and read something a little bit more left field.
Well, that's part of gathering your own confidence, isn't it?
But it gives you confidence. And music can give you confidence. Singing. And I think physical activities, I mean, I enjoy doing karate, for example. That gives you enormous.
But sports, I mean, one of the other organisations in the area that my core area is achieving the kind of outcomes we achieve in alternative provision through studio learning, through sports. Sporting Life for Change, I think, is the name of the charity. So sports is so much. And it's a shame if young people aren't doing sports, and it's really good when they are, because you're learning all those ideas around teamwork, about how you're getting on, how you're supporting others, physical fitness. Yeah. These things are fundamentally important. Actually, if you go into your late teens and early 20s as a fit person, you are doing yourself a big favour later in life.
Because your body remembers too. Yeah. And also, they say that physical activity is the best thing you can do to break depression.
Yeah, unbelievable.
And this is, again, you're getting kids with depression, best years of your life with serious depression. And a lot of that, it might be lack of activity, sat playing with your phones all day. All of us are doing it, all of us are silly, watching these silly YouTube channels all the time.
We can talk about AI and all the terrible things in the world. Go for a walk in the countryside and observe. Be the curious person. Just observe. And I love going around and seeing. So, those clever Victorian engineers, they did that to make that railway line do that, or you go around to look at the
energy of nature.
Yeah,
it's restorative. Yeah. The energy of the sea, the energy of the wind and air. I mean, and vitamin D you get, which again stops depression.
If you engage young people who are really challenged with the concept of nurturing and growing something, that could be an animal. So a lot of the people who come through us end up volunteering for the city farms or working for a dog's kennels, because they can resonate with that. But it's the idea of taking care of something, whether that's a little bulb you're creating into a plant or an animal. It's incredibly important. Nature and being part of nature and engaging with it is the best therapy in the world.
Yeah, nurturing something. Got another question. How do you cope with other people ridiculing you when you go on a diet, trying to get fit and things like that?
Well, you wouldn't take any notice of them, would you? You do it for yourself.
if you've managed to get that core belief, it'll be a sticks and stones situation. But I do understand though how enormously disruptive and disheartening it can be when people having a pop at you because of your physical appearance. So I'm not belittling that at all. It's really tough, but you're just going to have to find a way of believing in yourself. And of course you can say, I'll prove you wrong. There's a terrible thing out there called digital spy, right? I don't know if you've ever come across it. But you hide behind a nom de plume, then you can be as rude as you like about everyone. Someone saw fit to be a little bit mean about me to do with we organised local radio day, and anyway, so it wasn't a big problem for me, but the matter of my size came up, and it was described, I think, in somewhat dismissive terms as a rotund gentleman, and hiding behind the nice words was really quite a calculated insult. Now, I was, by the time I read this, was about sort of 4 stone into my weight loss. And I actually know who wrote that. And I was at it, and I didn't reveal, of course, but I was at an event quite recently, and they were a little bit more rotund than me. So you want to be careful.
Yeah. And it's the same. But people love to criticize, don't they? And they love to... They love to destroy success, don't they? They love to see people pulled down.
Yeah.
We like to see people build up to become a celebrity, but we enjoy it even more when they get pulled down, don't they? The mindset of people is terrible, really. And I think you've got to realise that the world out there is full of horrible, critical people. And I think you just got to not care about it.
That's right.
If you start caring about what people think about you, you're going to be absolutely destroyed in this world. But even if you're the most glamorous person, the most handsome person like me, and
let's have a bit of an attachment with that, Fred, shall we?
I think when you're looking at the weight thing, it's the early stages of your journey where you're most vulnerable.
I suppose.
Yeah.
And so I think you've got to find whatever it is for you, but you're not going to be mocked or ridiculed in your Weight Watchers or your supportive circle. So if you are, people are having a pop at you because of the way you look, really the best thing to do is to seek out those spaces, those groups, those people who are with you, not against you.
Yeah, that's
absolutely
true. You'll always find someone on your side, and you'll find a lot more against you. You've got to... I think self-belief in many respects is something that's very zen. You just got to do it. You just got to say, that's my natural state. My natural state is self... And I believe in self-praise. Because it influences the unconscious mind. If you tell yourself you're good at something, you'll become that way. If you tell yourself you're rubbish at something, your unconscious is like a computer that obeys everything you tell it. So tell yourself, I'm brilliant. I'm wonderful.
We all need to be lucky in life, but sometimes you can do quite a bit to create your own luck.
Oh, I'm sure.
And what you just described is if you believe it, it becomes a reality.
Yeah. And I believe it's also not just a psychological energy, but it's something we also send out into the world, and then strange good luck comes your way. Opportunities come your way because you've got into a mindset of generating energy that is, first of all, changing your own mind. Your subconscious will do whatever you tell it. So tell it, I'm marvellous. Okay, I'm marvellous. But it also seems to connect to the universal mind. And the universal says, he's marvellous. Give him this. I'm sure it works like that. Up to a point, certainly. Even when you have people believing in you, perhaps you have to give yourself permission to believe in yourself.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Permission to believe in yourself, yeah. I think we also get pulled down by what I used to call parental conditioning. They tell you, you've got to be a good boy. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. You've got to do that. So there's a sort of part of yourself that thinks it's got to obey and got to be obedient. We all obey authority very often. They have those experiments, don't they, with the psychologists where they give people electric shocks until the person's screaming with pain faked up tests in labs, and people will press the button because there's a figure of authority is saying it's okay, press the button again, press it when the person screams, all faked up. But they use it to show that people will obey authority. That's what I think. Another thing of self-confidence has to be this, what I call non-conformity, saying I'm not going to obey what everybody tells me to do. If everybody in the world might be wrong about something, I might be the only one that's right. I'm probably mad, but I might be the only one that's right. So I think you have to question authority, and you have to question what the common view of things is. You've got to be prepared to stand for your own beliefs, your own ideas, your own truth, and that's where truth and confidence come together.
Yeah, and if you can generate that self-belief, that's where that leads. But I also think it's, people talk about the imposter syndrome, don't they, where they feel inadequate. They actually know professionally, it's about the difference between the self-esteem and the professional confidence again. They know that they may be professionally up to it, but there's an inner doubt. There's a wonderful person that I've been mentoring recently, who's a really good journalist, got loads going for her, but she doesn't believe, or she didn't believe. And I always say you've got a lot more in you if you only just release it yourself.
Yeah.
And slowly, she has self-declared mental health issues, but slowly she's beginning to see that she can do this because she's believing in herself to do it. And I think so. That idea of surely they don't mean me, surely they don't think I can do it. If you can make sure that giving permission, I think, or the questioner was saying, giving permission to yourself, that's a really important point. If you can do that and believe in yourself, then that is what will take you further. But if you doubt it, eventually it'll all kind of collapse around you.
And this works on both a psychological level, but also on a spiritual level. I think if we really believe in ourselves, that we are capable of incredible things. I think the human condition, we've only scratched the surface of our capability. Look at things like clairvoyance, look at things like materialization, levitation, all the potential things that we might have within our spirit. We are capable of a huge amount, spiritually, psychologically, and probably physically more capable than we think. We'll take the last one.
Have you got Don's website on there, Craig?
Yeah, it's all on the description, folks.
Yeah.
If you want to learn a bit more about the things we've been talking about Dom and all the incredible things he's done, and his charity and things like that, have a look in the description, and maybe you might be able to support it a bit out there. Some of you will be very nice. And this will be the last one now, because we're coming to the end of the show. Oh my, Craig, I hope the UK and Ireland never lose their individualism. It is something I have always wondered. I think our ability to think outside the box is vital. And that's a pretty good way to end it, actually, don't you think?
Yeah.
We have to do things different, or differently.
It's that thing. Okay, so empire was a bad thing, rock and roll a good thing. We conquered the world with the rock and roll. That'll do.
That'll do. Yeah, got you a job as a on the radio.
Talking about other people's rock and roll. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to finish the show there, guys. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed.
Can I thank you guys for
you.
having me? I love your work. And it's been a real privilege to come to Winchester, a city I love, to interact with you with this conversation. So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Dom. I mean, we're grateful for you to come on. It's lovely to have a guest from time to time. So keep following the show, guys. We have guests, we have chats with Jane and me, and we do the clairvoyance. So we'll be doing clairvoyance next week, Jane.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, so we'll go to the clairvoyance show next week. So, see you soon, folks.
Bye.
Bye for now.
Ciao.